guys, it's Stacy and welcome to my channel. Today, as the title said, we're going to be creating some backgrounds with stencils and ink. And this is for Nancy's new hashtag. Nancy from Handi Scandi has an open collaboration hashtag, hashtag fortheloveofsnowmen. Now this is a carryover from the hashtag snowmen in January 2025, and then the other hashtag from last year, which was hosted by not Jill Norwood. Hi, Jill. Hosted by Anna Wright from Sweet Miss Daisy's Designs. So Nancy saw how much fun everybody was having, and everybody expressed that they were really enjoying making these snowman cards. So it's an open collaboration. I'm going to leave her link below. I'm going to leave Jill's link below because I may be putting this up for Saturday Morning Makes, and that's an open collab for anything, whether you're a card maker, you're a sewer, crocheter, painter, jewelry, whatever you make, you can use a hashtag satmornmakes. And I will leave all the information in the description along with their links. Now the products I'm using today, I'm using a Hello Bluebird stamp set, snowman hugs, an MFT stencil, watercolor wash freeform, lawn fawn stencil, snowflake background stencils, a Gina K stamp set just for the sentiments, which is called Folk Art Snowflake stamp set. And I'll have to tell you that this watercolor background stencil from MFT is probably one of my faves because it allows you to create a background that is, I think, pretty impactful, it quickly and easily. And you can use it in so many different ways with all types of different images. It just allows a lot of freedom. So what I'm doing here is I got out a multimedia mat that I got from Hobby Lobby. It's just a silicone mat. You can get them anywhere. I should have pulled out my waffle flower grip mat because then it would have adhered the paper, the stencil, and whatnot. But I think I'm just used to doing what I did before I had that. And so I taped down the cardstock. I centered up my MFT stencil, and then I adhered that down. As you saw, I started with Post-it note tape, which kept lifting because a silicone mat doesn't want anything to stick to it. And then I used some Scotch tape to hold it down. And I'm cleaning my brush really well. I wanted to show you that because these colors, some of them are really light. And I don't want, and I'm using the same brush. That's a Hero Arts blending brush. You can use whatever you want. You can use sponges, any brushes you have, any sponges you have, and you'll be able to do this. Just, I start with my lightest, and then I go to my mid, and then I go to my darkest, and then I work back and forth and to make that blend smooth. And this cardstock is some Recollections heavy cardstock. It's 110 pound weight. It's pretty heavy, and I have good results with blending on it. But if you struggle with making a smooth blend, you could get yourself some Strathmore Bristol smooth cardstock and you can blend anything on that. So I'm choosing Distress inks today, but use what you have. If you have any other inks, it doesn't matter. It'll blend. You just have to keep working back and forth. And I would say start lighter and then work your way up to going heavier. And just keep going back and forth. Make sure you clean your brushes or your sponge, or you have separate ones in between so you don't contaminate that color, unless that's the look you're going for. I've done it before, especially if I go from light to mid to dark that are very similar. You can get away with it, but I wanted these colors to be pretty true to what they are. Here's where I'm bringing in that lawn fawn stencil, and what I did was I cleaned the MFT stencil prior, because I don't want the ink to contaminate it. And then I laid it back down, lined it up, and I'm using it as a mask. And then I laid the MFT snowflake stencil over it and pushed the glitter paste through it and then removed it. And here's the end result. Now, if you use this glitter paste or any other paste, go wash your stencils immediately. Your stencils, your tools, because once it dries, it's like cement. It's not coming off of there. And especially with this Lawn Fawn Snowflake stencil, it's got very fine lines and it's really detailed, so it would definitely clog the stencil up and make it to where it's probably not usable anymore. And so this is the same thing. I'm doing the same process with this one. The next one's going to be a little bit different. I just blended my Distress inks and then put the stencil, clean the stencil, put the stencil back down, use it as a mask, and then went in with my snowflake. Now this one I'm using Distress Oxides. Distress Oxides are a pigment dye-based hybrid ink, and I like sponges for them because when I blend with a brush, to me it gets real gummed up, and I don't get as good of a blend. And what I did was I took that snowflake stencil and I put it back after I cleaned the other MFT stencil, and I went in with a baby wipe. And that baby wipe I put because Distress inks react with moisture or water, and you're not going to get like a really crisp snowflake, but they were there. And when in the close-ups you'll see them. And then I splattered some water on because they weren't super crisp snowflakes. And then I splattered on some P.H. Martin. I have to get it. I should have been prepared. Hopefully I didn't get real loud. Dr. P.H. Martin's Pen White Bleed Proof ink. And that's what I splattered, the white splatter on the background. I did water it down a bit. I try not to water it down too much because it becomes not as bright white. But this time I didn't mind so much because it was a more distressed look. And then I'm going to come in and color these images. And this is Memento Tuxedo Black ink stamped on Express It blending cardstock. And I finally got my hands on some. I'd been given some in the past that I was told it was Express It. It wasn't. You guys, this cardstock is phenomenal. I don't think I will ever go back unless I'm using pencils to anything else. I did not have to continually work my blends. They were so smooth. Sometimes they blended too much for me because I do like some contrast. So I can't say I won't completely ever go back to using my Nina because I have it. And if I wanted a more defined shadow and not so smooth, I would probably go back to it. But I'm going to go order me some more of this as soon as Blick has their big package in. I'm going to get me a full ream, and it's expensive. At Blick, it's $60 for a ream, I think, of 200. But this right here isn't even a quarter of the page. So you got to think about how many cards you're going to make, stamp your images. If you're doing full backgrounds, it'll go a lot faster. So here I'm just working, and I'm leaving as you can see, an outline on the edge because I want that highlight. And I'm working from darkest to lightest and back. And a lot of times I map my shadows out with my lightest, and then I go in with my darkest. I don't believe I did this time. And then I really brought in a really light gray for the shadow on the hat, which was a C3, which is pretty light for if you're creating a black image. That's not completely white. I didn't want that. It just softens that edge a little bit, but it still leaves that pop on the edge, which I enjoy. And today I'm not shadowing both sides and making it shadowed from the front. I am actually shadowing the left side as if the light source is coming from the right. So everything will be shifted. And it may not all be completely accurate. I color what is fun for me, what's enjoyable, what I think looks good, and you should do that too. If you want super hyper realism, you're not going to get that here. I do try to make some realism, but not to that level. But I think it's gorgeous. And I think this gives some realism as far as shadows go. And if you go out in nature, your shadows aren't always going to be on the harsh left or right, even if your light source is coming from the opposite side. Because in nature, you know, if you're looking at a tree, you may have some shadows, your sun coming from the right-hand side or your sun coming from the right-hand side and your shadows on the left. But there may be some in there on the right, because you may have a branch that kind of overlaps or whatever it is, maybe the texture. So, I mean, really look at some pictures and see. So no matter what you do, just color, just create, and it'll be beautiful. And, you know, and keep practicing. If you're still learning, keep practicing. I'm no pro. I haven't been coloring with Copics that long. I take big gaps in between. And I think my stuff, I think my stuff looks pretty good. I'm proud of it. And you should be proud of whatever you create and know that you start somewhere and that the more you do it, the better you get. This one, I'm not with a bunny and the little squirrel. Usually I like to skip numbers in the Copic family. I'll use the example again with your warm grays or your grays. You'll have like warm gray, it starts, I think, at 0, 0. So if you start at warm gray 1, I like to go to warm gray 3 to 5 because they're made to blend naturally. And if you do them each one after that, you don't get as much contrast, especially in small images. It's probably great for larger images, but for smaller images, you don't. So I like to skip a couple of numbers in between. On these animals, because I wanted to use the natural blending family, I did go from, I think there's an E40, E41, E42, E43, and E44. So for the lighter, I think I went E40, 41, 42. For the darker, I went E41, 2, 3, 4. And then that'll give a little bit of difference in them. And then this right here, I think I'm coloring at, it's either double or 4 times speed. And I wanted to keep it as slow as I could without making this video too long. And then after this image, I'm going to speed it up for the last 2, but I walk you through every single card in this video. My last video, I focused on the techniques of each medium I was using. If you haven't seen that, I have a video up that has coloring with colored pencils on craft cardstock. Then we're comparing it to Copics. And then we're having, I compare it to watercoloring that same image with distress inks. And I think they're all wonderful. I think they're all beautiful. And I also talked about the different layouts of your sentiment and placement, which makes a big impact on cards, I think. So with these little guys, I'm just coloring. I'm from my darkest to my lightest and working it out. And I don't think I've ever used this red blending family, and I love it. Like, this is so pretty. And those highlights really pop because there's such a difference in that pinkish color to the red. So I really enjoyed this red color combination. I'm surprised I haven't used it before. I usually try to go with like a deeper red, but this one I try to keep lighter. And I think these little images from Hello Bluebird are so darling. See, here I sped it up. And I love coloring snow purple. For me, in high school, my art teacher, I remember saying, like, purple is in a lot of shadows naturally, that it's really pleasant to the eye as shadows, whether it's watercolor. And she was still continuing her education in art. And she would bring in her work from her classes from the local college here, and she would bring them in and say, and I couldn't believe how impactful purple is, but I really like it for snow. But teal's my favorite color. I wanted to go ahead and go with some teals. I'm trying to give you guys some variety on my channel as well. And so that's why I'm changing up the colors, but purple's my jam. I don't even really like purple, like the color purple all that much, but I like it for shadows. And then I'm going to color this little guy up. These images are just so cute, guys. Are you guys going to participate in For the Love of Snowmen? This community is so wonderful, and a lot of the people that participate in these hashtags are smaller channels, and you get to be inspired and connect with them on a different level than you do some of your larger YouTubers that are in the crafting community, which they're all wonderful. It's a very welcoming community no matter what level, but it's really, it's so supportive. So I encourage you to use that hashtag, even if you're not creating to post or share your creations. Use it to search and get to know these crafters, because they're very supportive, they're wonderful, and they just share their knowledge, their love of creating and they're just, it's a blessing. And I've met, from this snowman hashtag, I've had people come over who have found me, and I've found other people that I didn't know were on YouTube, and their channels are wonderful, and I'm so glad. Thank you, Nancy, for hosting this again. Right here I'm taking, and I fussy cut these images out. When you fussy cut an image out, cut a little bit on the line, and then I took that memento marker which matches the ink, and I took the brush tip and I went from the back, and then I outlined the edge because it makes any errors or any roughness in a fussy cutting look smooth. I like to go from the back, and the reason being is I cannot tell you how many times I've gone from the front and that marker slipped and then I ruined my image. So I like to put my marker on the back side. And if I had slowed it down, I think I flipped over one of those images to show you that I did slip, and I didn't do that on purpose, and it would have ruined my image. So that's why I choose to go from the back. You can do it from the front. You can do it however you want. I've even laid my images down flat and outlined them on something like a piece of paper. Here I had used the Distress Oxides, which take longer to dry than the Distress Inks, and it hadn't been that long. So I was going to go ahead and stamp it, and I thought, let me make sure that this ink is dry because I'm going to heat emboss on it. And if there's any spots that aren't completely dry, that embossing powder is going to stick to it. So you've seen me take my heat tool to it just to make sure that it was dried. And I slowed this, this is real time. And then I took my embossing powder, poured it over the front. That brush, there wasn't anything stuck. I was just double checking because there was splatter there and I couldn't tell. So I encourage you to check, ask me why I do this, because I've made the mistake before, and sometimes it's ruined a project, or it's been really a lot of work to try to get that stray embossing powder. And there I'm taking a Swiffer cloth, and I'm wiping down the excess embossing buddy bag, the powder that you put on, just to make sure that I'm getting all that off of there, because I used an anti-static tool. That's what it's called, an embossing anti-static tool, and got all the excess residue off from that. And I let my heat gun heat up before I started embossing these sentiments, guys. Now, I didn't plan out where I was going to put my sentiments, but it worked out. If you're making these, plan it out with your snowflakes in the back, because you're not going to be able to stamp and heat emboss over that embossing glitter paste. So I didn't do that, it just worked out. And then I decided that I wanted to give the front of my card a little bit more visual interest. So I'm going around and taking 1/8 of an inch off of each side, which ends up being a total of 1/4 inch from the outside. And I'm not going to foam mount these. You could put foam tape under there. You could use the foam sheets and cut them down so you could pop it up. I want to make these to where I can put them in the mail. And so I'm just attaching each one of those to my card front, which is Recollections 110 pound heavy cardstock. I love it for my card bases because I use it for the backgrounds and I will use it for card bases, but I don't like to color on it. It sucks up the inks, it bleeds, it gives your stamped images like it feathers. So, but it's great for card bases. And then I took some confetti sequins from Trinity Stamp Company, is it Trinity? And put those on the front. And typically I'll do a cluster of 3 and then 2, but I thought with all the sparkle from the snowflakes that 3 was enough. And pop those little guys up when I attached them on foam tape. And there they all are. Thanks guys for stopping by. I really appreciate your time. If you enjoyed my video, please like and subscribe. I've been really trying to put a lot more work into these so that they're watchable and that I'm giving tips and tricks, but also just giving you inspiration. And I hope that I inspire you like all of you inspire me. Thank you so much, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.